Hi, this is Steve Stein from Lessonface. I'd like to introduce you this month to a little bit about the modes. If you know anything about guitar modes or music modes, it's quite a complicating initial setup. But because we've been taking this approach of trying to expand the scales that we already have, what I want to do is just show you kind of how that modal idea wraps around the chords of a scale. And then hopefully what you can do is use that a little bit, and if you like it, you can continue looking for further study on modes, whether or not you find information here at Guitar World or some of the incredible teachers over at Lessonface or whatever it might be. So let's just start off by understanding what a mode is. Real basic. If we're in the key of C, what that tells us, we have 7 chords. We have C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. And a really easy way of thinking of that is that when you're in a major key, your 1, your 4, your 5 chord is always major. Your 2, your 3, your 6 chord are always minor, and your 7th chord is diminished. So let's say, for instance, we were going to apply that to our fretboard. So if you've ever done blues and that sort of thing, you know your 1-4-5, or if you've ever played pop music or anything like that, the 1-4-5 is a very, very popular chord progression. So if I'm in the key of C, my 1, I'm going to play it as a 6-string bar chord up here. Okay, I'm going to play it right up here. There's my 1, my 4 would be underneath, and my 5 would be 2 frets higher. 1, 4, 5. Now the nice thing about that shape is it's movable wherever you want to go. So if you want to be in the key of G, you could move down and play 1, 4, 5. Okay? The next step, the 2 or the 3 minor chords, which is the 2, the 3, and the 6 chord. So let's wrap those around what we have. We have a 1 chord here, which is the C. 2, a whole step higher, and that's going to be minor. 3, a whole step higher yet, and that's going to be minor. And then 4, 5, like before, and 6. Okay? So the 2 and the 3 exist on, I'm doing this with my 1 chord on the 6 string right here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now those 6 chords are going to be the most useful chords for us in a daily real world situation. I do have a B diminished chord that I can use as well. But many times, oftentimes in rock music and in blues music and pop music, that sort of thing, we use diminished chords on occasions, but we don't always use them correctly. We might use them as sort of a transitionary chord between things. So what I want you to really focus on is understanding those 6 chords right there. Now if I take the root of each one of those chords, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the theoretical aspect of this that you want to understand is being able to figure out that in any key that you want to be in, the 1-4-5 chord is going to be major, the 2-3-6 chord is going to be minor, and then the 7th chord is going to be diminished. And I think for a lot of people, we can look at major keys and minor keys and all these things, but if you understand that visually for your fretboard, if you try and convert no matter what it is that you're trying to figure out into a major key, you can plant the whole system on your fretboard. I'm going to show you that in a second. So if we wanted to be in the key of G major, even if we didn't know the key signature, even if we didn't know that it has 1 sharp and that sort of thing, we could use the same system that we did in the key of C and play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? And then our diminished chord, we're going to put it right above the 6. So if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is at the 7th fret, it's E minor, we're going to go up to F sharp, a whole step higher, and we'll throw that little diminished chord on there, and then it will resolve back. So you could figure out how to play the chords of your key oftentimes before you actually know it if you don't know your theory. So if we pick a little bit harder key, let's say the key of A flat, okay? So I go over to A and move back to A flat, I could still figure out my chords by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then my 7. That resolves back. So it's a really easy way of visualizing. And don't get me wrong, theory is an awesome thing. once you learn how to use certain elements of it. But a lot of times you're in a situation where you need to figure out a certain chord, or you know, which chord goes with what key or something like that. And it's nice to be able to look down and be able to figure out visually where those chords are. So you have one, no matter what key you're in, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As long as you start on the right note. So now, no matter what we do with that, let's go back to the key of C, because it's easier because there's no sharps and no flats. So if we look at the chords of the key of C, we have C, F, and G, which is our 3 major chords. We have D minor, E minor, and A minor, which are our 3 minor chords. So when we think of common chord progressions, if I play C, G, F, C, I'm playing in the key of C. I'm using the 1, 4, 5 chords in the key of C in whatever order I choose. If I start on the 6th chord, which is A minor, now I'm in the key of A minor, okay? And we'll get to the names in just a second as well. So what happens is the 1 chord and the 6th chord are very similar to each other. If you think about it, the chords, or the notes in the chord C, are C, E, and G. The notes in the A minor chord are A, C, and E. And if we make it an A minor 7, we have A, C, E, G. So the C chord actually exists in there, and you can even see it with my hand. If I make an A minor chord and then make A minor 7, okay, there's still a C in there, right? It's just the C isn't in the bass, the A is in the bass. So that's why when we talk about major and minor keys, the 1st chord is what's commonly referred to as the major key. The 6th chord is what's commonly referred to as the minor key. All right? So if you're playing a song, or you're writing a song, let's say, and you want to use both the major and the minor sides of things, staying in the same key, that's a really easy way of doing that, is maybe you start off making your verse minor, and then your chorus comes in, and you're going. So really the key with all of this that you have to understand is, it's not that you're playing all these notes. That makes a difference, but it's what you're emphasizing at the time that defines the mode that you're in. So to summarize this, modes, all mode really means is degree, right? So if you're in the key of C, you have 6, 7, but you have 6 really, really functional chords, the 3 majors and the 3 minors. Somewhere along the line, somebody decided, hey, if we play in the key of C, everything sounds like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. If we play in the key of G, everything still sounds like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. If we play in the key of A, everything still sounds like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So somewhere along the line, somebody said, why not be in the key of C? Why not use the chords of C? But instead of emphasizing the chord C, let's choose something else to emphasize. And any of those 6 chords can be emphasized, and they create different sounds, and that's where these modal terms come from. But let's make sure we understand the 1 and the 6 real quick before we move on to everything else. So when you are in the key of C and you're emphasizing C, we just commonly call that major. The church mode term for that is Ionian. Okay? We don't really walk around going, well, I'm in C Ionian. We say, I'm in C major, but that's what that is. When we're emphasizing the 6th chord, for piano players out there, you refer to that as the relative minor. When you're emphasizing the 6th chord, you're still in the key of C. You're using all of the elements of the key of C. It's just that you are now emphasizing the A minor chord. And when we do that, we call it, commonly we call it A minor. But again, theoretically, we call it Aeolian. So the 6th chord is Aeolian. Okay? Those are the 2 that you're going to spend most of your time dealing with when you go to solo over common music. Okay? And again, common is such a common word, right? So the most important thing, if you're not familiar with modes, is to be able to just take the chart of your 6 chords, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor. Take the C chord and write it first, and then write a couple of other chords after it. Now we know that if we're in the key of C and we go to the G chord, which is the 5 chord, the 5 chord does a really great job of resolving back to the 1. So we have C, let's say we do C, A minor, F, G. That's our chord progression. So I'm playing C, A minor, F, G. Okay? So we're doing this 1 chord to the 6 chord to the 4 chord to the 5 chord. Another thing that we could do if we wanted to get interesting with it and we didn't want it to sound like C major, we just choose a different chord to emphasize initially. So instead of, it's not just playing it first, but really trying to make it sound like it's more important than the other chords. So let's say I'm going to do the same thing, only this time I'm going to start with the A minor chord, and then I'm going to go to D minor, and then I'm going to go to F and G. So I'm just shaking it up, but I'm still using the G as my turnaround to head back to the 1 chord. All right? In this case, I'm substituting the 1 and putting the 6 in. So I have A minor, and that's going to resolve nicely, see, to that A minor chord. So it doesn't have to resolve to the C. That's the beauty of the 1 and the 6 chord, is that you could substitute the 6 for the 1 and then do whatever you want with your chord progression. There's no, right or wrong when it comes to chords. That's the beauty of music. Okay, so we're going to get to the scale stuff next month, and understand how we're going to apply these scale, the single notes and all that sort of thing. But what I want you to focus on this month is just getting a basic overview of being able to visualize those 6 essential chords, the 3 majors, the 3 minors, and start exploring a little bit on how they sound. For instance, if I decide I'm in the key of C and I'm going to emphasize the 2nd chord, which is D minor. So I do. So now what I'm doing is I'm playing the 2nd chord, which is D minor, and the 6th chord in the key of C, which is A minor. Now again, technically I'm in the key of C, but there's no C in my progression. I'm using the 2nd chord and the 6th chord. So if I was going to solo over the top of this, I would still be in the key of C. And that's one of the most important things for you to grasp when you're starting to learn about modes, is that if you, like when I first started learning about modes, like Dorian was its own thing and Phrygian was its own thing and all these different terms that we're going to get to in a second here. And I never understood that they were actually just part of a family. Dorian, which is the 2 chord, Dorian just means 2. For you and me, when we hear the term, for instance, D Dorian, what that's telling us is we're playing the 2nd chord of another key. Well, the 2nd chord of a major key is always minor. Dorian is a minor element. So if I say to you D minor, what I'm telling you really is that we're in the key of C, but we're emphasizing the D minor chord. The 3rd chord is called Phrygian. Phrygian is also minor because the 3rd chord, 1, 2, 3, is minor. If I said to you E Phrygian, what that tells you is I'm in the key of C, I'm using the chords of the key of C, but I'm emphasizing the 3rd chord, which is E minor. That's what E Phrygian means. Phrygian just means 3. Okay? We don't have to use all of these fancy words when we say major or minor because it's the common things that we use. So if I say we're in the key of G major, I'm talking about the 1. If I say I'm in B minor, I'm talking about B being a 6 of some key. If I want to use the 2 chord, I have to specify it. I can't just go, well, the 2 chord in a major key is minor. So I'm in this case, C major. So I'm in D minor. I can't say D minor because then it makes you assume that I'm talking about the 6th chord. So the real world language is when somebody says I'm in blank major, they're talking about a 1. When they say I'm in blank minor, they're talking about 6. If you want to be in 2, you have to say Dorian. And what that means again is that 2 chord is emphasized. It becomes the most important part of that particular element in that song. So here I'm playing D minor, A minor, and you could find that a lot in stuff like Santana is a great place to look for that sort of thing, for the Dorian sound. If I go to the 3 chord, which is E minor, and I start moving from E minor, for instance, to F major, can kind of hear the elements that make Phrygian sound like Phrygian. That half step between E minor and F major. Okay? So Phrygian is a minor mode. Phrygian just means 3. So in your mind you could think, if I said to you, oh, we're in E Phrygian, you'd think E is 3, D is 2, C is 1. So we're in the key of C. So I look at my fretboard, I set up my fretboard with C major, but again, my job as a rhythm player is to emphasize E minor. My job as the soloist is, again, to emphasize whatever is going on in the rhythm section. So over the E minor chord, we are in the key of C major, but C isn't the most important chord at that point in time. E minor is. The 4th chord in this little system is called F. Well, it's F major in the key of C. It's Lydian. Lydian means 4. G is the 5 chord, that's Mixolydian, and that means, of course, 5. And then you get to your 6th chord that we've been talking about, which is Aeolian, and then your 7th chord, which is Locrian. Now, I'm not trying to pick on Locrian and leave Locrian and all that sort of thing, but that 7th chord just isn't emphasized as a primary chord very often. You're going to see 1 and 6 emphasized all the time. Depending on what kind of music you play, you're going to see the 2 chord. You're going to see the 5 chord. Those are the next 2 really important ones, 2 and 5. The Dorian and the Mixolydian, we use those a lot. For instance, the end of Hey Jude is Mixolydian. You know, there's a host of different things I could give you. Can't You See by the Marshall Tucker Band is in Mixolydian. They're emphasizing the 5 chord. Dorian is another really important one. There's a lot of different things. You could look at the Doors, for instance. That's another great band to look at Dorian music. Then we move on to the Phrygian and the Lydian, okay? And those, again, there's so many different places. You could do just a web search and look up Phrygian and then read about it, or artists that use Phrygian, or songs in Phrygian, or songs in Lydian. But at least what you have is the framework to understand that next month we're going to be looking at the scales that connect to this theory. But the basic idea for you is to be able to put that together on your fretboard and understand what Phrygian means. It means 3. Lydian means 4. Mixolydian means 5. And be able to bring that idea. So if somebody says to you, D Mixolydian, you count forward or backwards, or you put it on your fretboard. D Mixolydian, 5, 4, 1. And so you can find what key you're supposed to be in, set up your fretboard, blah, blah, blah. So again, it's just one perspective on how to look at the modes. There's no easy way in 15 minutes to try and describe everything that there is with the modes. But if I can get you to start thinking more logically about the chordal structure, the scales that are coming next month will make a bit more sense. So take care, practice hard. Let me know if you have any questions about this, which you probably will, and I'll try and direct you into the right places. But please remember, Lessonface has got some really great teachers over there, and just, you know, real comprehensive. So I encourage you to check that out. And of course, you're on Guitar World already, and there's just a ton of great stuff on here, so you could look here as well. So take care, and I'll see you next month.